Portrait of Hollow Vale. On the edge of Hollow Vale, where the forest thickens and the fog clings to the trees like pale fingers, there stands a manor no one dares to approach. Its crumbling chimneys tilt with age, its roof has caved in on one side, and weeds coil around rusted gates that no longer close. To outsiders, it looks like just another ruin, another relic abandoned to time. But to those who have grown up in Hollow Vale, the house is something else entirely. They call it Blackwood Manor. Children whisper its name during dares, teenagers scrawl it in notebooks, and old men at the tavern cross themselves whenever the conversation turns in its direction. Everyone knows the story of Lady Eveline Blackwood, the woman whose beauty was said to be both divine and damned. Eveline had everything: wealth, land, admirers who traveled for days just to catch a glimpse of her at the balcony. Yet beauty was never enough for her. Vanity wrapped itself around her heart like ivy. She wanted not just to be admired, but to be eternal. So she summoned the most gifted painter in the region, a man rumored to have studied under masters in faraway lands. For weeks he lived inside the manor, capturing Eveline's face in oil and canvas, layer upon layer of color and shadow. Servants whispered that strange rituals took place during the sittings. Candles burned black, the smell of incense lingered in the halls, and Eveline's voice could be heard chanting when no one else was present. When the portrait was finally unveiled, gasps filled the room. Her likeness was flawless, yet something about it was wrong. Her eyes shimmered unnaturally, as though they weren't painted at all, but alive. The longer one looked, the more they swore her gaze followed them around the room. Even the servants avoided it, bowing their heads when they passed. A month later, Lady Eveline vanished. No body was ever found. The servants claimed they had heard a scream echoing through the halls one stormy night. When they ran to her chambers, the portrait was the only thing they found. Eveline's painted face, once beautiful, now seemed distorted in terror, her eyes wide as though she were frozen in her final scream. The manor was abandoned soon after. Generations passed, but no one removed the portrait. It remained nailed to the wall, untouched, as though it owned the house itself. Decades later, curiosity found its victims. A group of teenagers from Hollow Vale, Thomas, Clara, Jacob, and Lily, dared each other to enter the manor one autumn night. They were tired of hearing the same stories from their elders, dismissing them as old superstitions. Armed with flashlights and bravado, they pushed through the iron gates, their laughter echoing against the empty stone walls. Inside, the air was heavy with rot. Dust clung to every surface. Cobwebs swayed in the corners like skeletal curtains. Their footsteps stirred centuries of silence, and though they joked, none could shake the feeling that the house was listening. They found the portrait in the grand hall. Despite years of decay, it looked untouched. The canvas glistened faintly in the beam of their flashlights. Eveline stared out at them in her emerald gown, her lips curved in a delicate smile. Yet her eyes seemed alive, creepy. Jacob muttered, but he couldn't look away. Clara nudged him, half laughing, half uneasy. Then it happened. Eveline blinked, not once, not a trick of the light, but a deliberate, slow blink. The room chilled instantly. Whispers filled the air, curling through the dust like invisible snakes. At first they were faint, like wind through broken glass. But soon they grew louder, layered voices that hissed and moaned, calling their names. Thomas's flashlight flickered, then went out. In the brief darkness, he swore he felt someone standing behind him, breathing against his neck. When the light returned, there was nothing there. Clara screamed. She pointed at the painting. Eveline's smile had stretched wider, unnaturally wide, splitting her face as though the canvas itself were tearing. Her painted hand now pressed against the inside of the frame, fingers straining outward. One by one, their reflections appeared on the canvas, first blurred, then sharper, until it looked as though they too were standing inside the portrait. Their mouths opened in silent horror. "Run!" Thomas shouted, but the door slammed shut before they reached it. The manor groaned, the walls shuddering like a living thing. Shadows slithered across the hall, circling them, herding them back toward the painting. Lily dropped her flashlight, the beam falling upward to illuminate the portrait. Eveline's eyes were no longer on them. She was looking out beyond them, directly into the viewer's gaze. The whispers grew deafening. The air turned heavy, pressing into their lungs. Clara clawed at the door, screaming for help, but when Thomas turned back, she was gone. In her place, Eveline now had a companion. Clara's face, pale and twisted in terror, was painted beside hers. One by one, the others vanished, their screams echoing only for a moment before the portrait swallowed them whole. When the townsfolk eventually found the manor days later, the grand hall was silent. The portrait still hung on the wall. Eveline stood center frame, her gown immaculate, her smile wide, but she was no longer alone. 4 new faces stared out beside her, their eyes frozen in horror. Even now the manor stands untouched. The gates rust, the roof caves, but the portrait endures. Children dare each other to approach, to shine a light through the broken windows. Some swear they've seen the eyes blink again. And on stormy nights, when lightning splits the sky, passers-by hear faint cries carried on the wind, pleas for help, muffled and desperate, as though trapped behind glass. Everyone in Hollow Vale knows the truth. The portrait remembers those who gaze too long, and once it remembers you, it never forgets.